Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I'm Sareth, and every single episode of the Stand Up Speakeasy, I bring on a guest that lives in the Central Time Zone for now. And my goal was to go on tour before COVID hit and just take a tour of the Central Time Zone and interview as many comics as I can. And but since COVID happened, I couldn't do that. And there's a silver lining because usually my interviews are like 10 to 20 minutes long, but now I get to spend more time with them and get to know them a lot more uh, with just my usual questions. So with that being said, I like to raise funds for those that are out of work with comedy, as well as their favorite nonprofits and charities too. So with that said, I'm bringing my guest onto the show. Her name is Olivia. Olivia, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. So Olivia, I was reading your bio, and it's quite entertaining. And you've done a lot in the comedy scene, which is pretty awesome. So the first thing that stood out the most was that you're a
I'm trying
Florida
my best.
woman.
Yeah.
Indeed, you're a Florida woman without the meth addiction. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, and and
That's
now
my
there's like
shit.
absolutely. My hometown of Pueblo has like a meth problem too, in Colorado. So
It's
meth is everywhere. It's like
it really is. Yeah.
indeed, but Florida for us, we get bath salts, so hopefully they catch up to us.
Florida has everything. Yeah.
Indeed, most
Everyone
definitely,
retires here. They really retire here just because of the drugs. Let's be honest. They're like, fuck it. We're done with that. We're done with everything. Let's just do drugs.
absolutely. I blame it on Al Pacino or in was it Al Pacino in Scarface or was it Robert De Niro? I think it was Al Pacino. I don't know. It's one of the two. There was a lot of drugs in that movie too. But Olivia, you've been performing in every week since 2013, and you perform mostly in the South and the Gulf along the Gulf Coast. What's like the scene like in the South and the Gulf Coast?
I thought you said golf course. Haven't performed at a golf course yet. Are you saying what is it like performing here?
Yeah, like what's the scene like
Well,
in your parts?
before COVID, it was a growing scene. Pensacola went from having just like one open mic and one showcase to having like 2 to 3 open mics to having like 7 or 8 showcases and like run by different people. But ever since COVID happened, literally all that stopped and it's kind of slowly creeping back. We have like a few, like we have one outside open mic that's run by my podcast partner, Andrew Ferrara. And then we have the other theater in town that also is doing book shows. But so that's kind of what it's like right now. But it's not really like any big cities in this area. So it's not like we have any like actual comedy clubs to perform at. We just kind of had to like build them on, like, make them ourselves or whatever and produce our own shows. So that's what it's like doing comedy in the Gulf Coast.
Ah, indeed. It reminds me of Daytona Beach. Like, there's no comedy club there. Well, there's like Bonkers, but it's just like there are pop-up comedy clubs, but they're not like an official one. But
it's something though. Yeah, we don't have we have nothing official or even anything close to Bonkers.
Indeed, most definitely.
Our main comedy club actually in Pensacola before it shut down in March. It was the basement of a Days Inn lobby. And it's also a swingers club. And I was a bartender there. That's where I did my first open mic and where I was performing most of the time. But that's like our main comedy club in Pensacola. It's so ridiculous.
Dang, that sounds like a whole lot of fun for sure. Like a swingers club and a comedy club together. That's just...
It's nuts. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Lots of stories.
Absolutely. And so you're the co-founder of the Pensacola comedy group known as the Back Porch Comedy. What got you involved with the Back Porch Comedy? Like, what's the whole story behind that?
Well, let's see. Back Porch Comedy probably started, I want to say like 2014, 15, like a year or two after I started doing comedy. It's actually at the Days Inn basement that I was just talking about. That's where it was at. And that was run by comedian Tony Burkett. And he's been doing comedy for like over 10 years. He was one of the best comedians in Pensacola. So he ran that, and it was me and like 2 or 3 other people. We just kind of helped him out with it. That was mainly his thing. And ever since he moved, it actually changed to something that's called rated R comedy. But then soon after that happened, that's when everything shut down. Yeah.
Indeed. That's like, COVID's horrible. I wish it would just go away so we can start doing comedy again. Well, Florida, it's a whole different monster because like it picked back up again in Orlando and Jacksonville and Daytona. So I'm just bouncing between all those cities doing stand up now. So has it picked back up
again?
Yeah,
I see like a lot of stuff still happening in Tampa.
That's pretty neat. Hopefully I can go there on Sunday. There's some cool shows happening there at Side Splitters. We'll see what happens. But and let's see here. You also have your own monthly showcase at the local bar Chizuko from 2017 to 2020. I believe that's how you say it.
Yes, and that bar they actually had to close down because COVID. So I no longer have that show anymore. And I mean, I'm not so much upset about losing my show as I'm upset about the venue shutting down because that was one of like the best venues in Pensacola, and everyone's really sad about it. But we're hoping they'll start something back up another, I don't know, maybe a year from now or so. But yeah, they had to sell their buildings of everything going on right now. It was really sad.
Most definitely. What are some of your favorite memories from that place?
We had Ben Kronberg from Last Comic Standing. He's the one that Roseanne got mad at. So it's like what he's famous for. He had a really great show at Chizuko. Comedian Cliff Cash. That was one of the main bars in Pensacola he'd perform at. Like we loved having him there. So every time he was there, it was a really great show.
Indeed. I've seen him perform at Rain Dogs in Jacksonville, and man, he puts on a great show.
He really does. Yeah, and he brings a lot of people too.
Absolutely. He knows how to market himself, which is great for everyone, for sure. Indeed. So you've also you mentioned Andrew earlier, and you're on a podcast together. You co-host it called We're Not For Everybody. And how did that all start?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the story? What's the how did that all happen? How did you all join forces?
So Andrew and I, we've actually known each other since I was about 8 years old. It's because our families went to the same church and we went to the same school. So we didn't really start off as best friends. We've just always known each other. And as the years went by, we just became closer and closer. And I actually got him into doing stand-up. He started maybe, I think, he just had his 6-year anniversary, I'm pretty sure, or like 5-year anniversary, somewhere around there. But yeah, he saw that I was doing stand-up because I've been doing it for about 7.5 years. And we reconnected and I was like, you are so funny. Like you need to start doing stand-up. You'd be great at it. And it's something he's always wanted to do. So then that really just, tied the knot, made us even closer. He's my best friend and we've been talking about doing a podcast together for a long time. And then quarantine, was the perfect time to start doing it, just like everybody else. That's when they all started their podcasts. But yeah, we're having a lot of fun with it and we're getting a lot of good feedback. And I think the reason it's become, or I'm not saying it's successful because we only have 7 episodes, but I mean, it's been a lot of fun so far. We have a lot of people listening to it and we're having a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Indeed. And I got to tune into those for sure. Cause that's when I started doing these podcasts. Cause I'm just like, if I'm going to be stuck at home, I got to talk to my pals and make some new pals too. So indeed. And so I love the way you describe your comedy, and you described it as neurotic, observational storytelling, not necessarily self-deprecating, making light of your flaws, your life's embarrassments, and little moments where we ask ourselves, am I doing this right? And that's how I do my comedy, my styles too. So, and that's why I love the way that you describe George. And so, what are some of your favorite material that everyone looks forward to whenever you go on stage?
My favorite material, I've never really thought about like people coming out and seeking out like favorite material of mine. Well, you know what I will say, I have this one joke about nipple sizes. And I'm talking about how like my friends, like they all tan topless, but I'm not that brave. And like, I'm like, well, hey, how do you keep your nipples from getting sunburnt? And my friend's like, oh, I just put quarters on top of them. And then I go into this whole thing. I'm like, well, great. Well, you have the perfect tits. Congratulations. And then I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I don't have any coffee filters on me right now. So I guess I can't join you. So it's a big nipple joke. And that one's always been a really big hit. And like, I just know I need to retire it because I've been doing that joke so many times, like almost every week for like the last 6 years. But like, people love it. And it's one of my staple jokes. And I've had people come up to me and say they brought friends out just so they could hear that joke. So I guess that's one of the only ones I could really say that people expect to hear from me.
That's the best when you get those, like, when people look forward to that joke. It's just like,
yeah.
And people say, like, once you record it, some folks say, like, once you record it and, people know what to expect, they don't, it's dead and gone. But that's not necessarily the case because some people just want to hear it, like your greatest hits. It's like you go to like a concert and you want to hear that band's greatest hits or musician's greatest hits. So I'd say you're some of your greatest hits for sure. I can't wait to see it live for sure. That's for sure.
Oh, yay.
Indeed. And so you performed in at the Ha Ha Harvest Comedy Festival, PDX, Pensacola Indie Fringe and Comedy Festival, New York Underground Comedy Festival with Comedy Zone, and nominated as In Weekly's Best of the Coast in 2008 to 2020. What were those experiences like?
Let's see. Let's start off with the first one, the Ha Ha Harvest Comedy Festival. I got into that one I was there exactly a year ago, exactly a year from today. And that was a lot of fun. I applied for that one. I wasn't expecting to get into it. Just before that, I had applied for the Hell Yes Fest in New Orleans, and I got into that. And then I was really excited about it. And then once I started, posting it on social media that I got in, a lot of people were like, hey, the people that run that are really messed up people. Like, everyone's boycotting them right now. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to support them. So I ended up turning that down. I was really sad because that was actually the first festival that I got into. But I was like, I can't be a part of that. It's not right. So maybe like a few days after that, I found out that I got into the Ha Ha Harvest Festival in Portland. I'm like, well, that's way better because that's across the country. And like, so that was my first comedy festival. And then maybe 2 months after that, I got into the Pensacola Indie Fringe and Comedy Festival. And that was actually the very first comedy festival they had in Pensacola. And we had, oh my God, Gilbert Gottfried was the one headlining it. And I'm trying to remember who else. Anyways, he was the main one. But yeah, they had a bunch of like regional comics come in. A lot of the best locals performed in it. And that was a lot of fun. Comedy Zone. That was like the first big thing I did. We had a Comedy Zone here in Pensacola, but it only lasted for like a few months because I guess you can't have that many comedy zones. Like, they had to be like a certain like distance away from each other. And I guess there's one in Fort Walton Beach, so they couldn't have one in Pensacola anymore, so they got rid of that. But I got to do one Comedy Zone show, and I'm still going to use it on my bio because why not? I need all the credits I can get. But yeah, I did that show maybe only a year and a half after me doing comedy. And that same day, I was at a Gothic boat party in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. I almost said in the middle of Mexico. Wow. But it was in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And it wasn't like on a big yacht or anything. It was just a bunch of like me and my friends on my like friend's dad's pontoon boat. We're all just like packed onto that boat, just getting drunk and fucked up all day. And I noticed the sun was going down. I was like, oh my God, y'all got to get me back to my car. I'm doing a show at the Comedy Zone later. It's like my first like big show. So I get there like 5 minutes late to the Comedy Zone, and I'm still in my swimsuit, and I have like my swimsuit cover on. I'm covered in sand. I've got the whole beach hair thing going on. It's the first show I invited my parents to. Like, I looked like, I looked so unprofessional, but it went well. I just got to open up for some bigger comics, whose names I can't remember. But I only did like 5 minutes on that show and went first. But that was a fun experience. Yeah, so I only did Comedy Zone once. And then I'm trying to think of the other ones you mentioned. Oh, yeah, the New York Underground Comedy Festival. That's actually coming up this weekend. So I just went ahead and put it on there.
Awesome, fantastic. And the you were also nominated as in week's Best of the Coast from 2018 to 2020 too.
Yes. So my podcast co-host Andrew Ferrara, he actually won it the first 2 years of them having it. And so I've always just been one of the nominees on there. I've always been a runner-up. I've never actually won it. But I'm still putting that as one of my credits. So
Absolutely. And you mentioned Gilbert Gottfried earlier, and I just recently watched his documentary, and it was pretty interesting and it was pretty awesome. Like he breaks down like how he got fired from Aflac and everything, and like we talk about his family life in there. It's like, wow, this is pretty
how
neat.
did he get fired? I don't know that story. What happened?
Oh, he just tweeted out some, really insensitive things during the cancel culture thing, and then that's why he got fired. So
Oh, that sucks.
yeah, indeed. And then when you told me about your parents seeing you at Comedy Zone, that was like, I took me back to the time I invited my parents to when I went and performed at Jackie Knight's Comedy Club in St. Augustine for the first
Yeah, I've
time.
heard of that. I keep meaning to go there.
Indeed, it's a cool place, and like my parents were like, "We don't get any of this, but we're going to support you no matter what." So,
I feel like that's kind of how my parents are too. Yeah, they had only seen me that one time, and like I keep meaning to like over like the last it's been 6 years since they've seen me, so it needs to happen soon. I need to show them that I've gotten better, and that I'm on time now as well.
Indeed, I feel your pain. I got to show my parents that I got better, but they just stick to watching my YouTube videos on YouTube, and they just ask me questions about dead Kennedys and stuff, and I just have to tell them about the dead Kennedys. So. You worked with shared the bill with a lot of famous comedians, like so we'll talk about each one and all that good stuff. And tell me about your experiences with them. So the first is Jonah Ray from Mystery Science Theater 3000. What was that like?
You almost said Jonah Hill, and whenever he was coming in town, I kept doing that too. I kept saying like, "Oh yeah, Jonah Hill's coming to do a comedy show here," and everyone's like, "Jonah Hill." I'm like, I mean Jonah Ray. My bad. But so Jonah Ray, he is such a nice guy. He is so sweet. He actually got my email from like a mutual friend, I guess, because he was coming to do what was it? Yeah, Pensacon here, the Comic-Con in Pensacola. So he's going to be a part of that, and he was looking to do any comedy shows while he was in town just to make the most of it. And he got my email from a mutual friend, and that was such a big surprise because it's like one of the biggest like comedy shows we've had at our main venue like ever. It was like probably almost 200 people there. Yeah, he's such a nice guy, and like he hung out with us the entire time during the show, like before the show and after. And so that was probably one of the best shows I've ever done. And then, so did you say anyone else already? Sorry.
Oh, not yet. Kevin McDonald was the next one from Kids in the Hall. What was it like working with him?
So Kevin McDonald, I didn't really get so much like one-on-one time with him as much as I did with Jonah Ray. I actually took the Kevin McDonald workshop because he came to Pensacola to do it. So basically, we just spent the whole day with Kevin McDonald, and like we took his class, and then we all got into groups, and we ended up doing our own sketch on stage live in front of a bunch of people. But that I don't think I've ever been so nervous during like any kind of comedy gig. Like Kevin McDonald's probably one of the most famous people I've ever met, along with Jonah Ray. But like Kevin McDonald, I don't know, I was just so nervous around him. But he was really nice. We spent all day with him. But like I said, it wasn't so much one-on-one time, or we didn't really get to have any conversations because he was teaching a class, and it was me and like 30 other people. But it was an awesome experience, and I'm glad I did it.
Awesome stuff. And this next comic is I got to interview him in Orlando, or like somewhere near Orlando, called the Speakeasy. And his name's Dave Stone, and he was on last.
Yes.
What was that like working with Dave Stone?
Dave Stone, I think I've opened up for him probably like 4 or 5 times at this point. Tony Burkett, who ran Back Porch Comedy, anytime like Dave Stone came through, he always made a point to like make me or put me on that show just because he knows that, like our comedy would go well together. Yeah, Dave's awesome, and I'm really proud of him, and he just keeps getting better and better. But yeah.
Awesome stuff. And Mike Kaplan from Netflix, what was that like?
Mike Kaplan is my spirit animal. He's just such an awkward person, and like I can super relate to him. I opened up for him only once, and it was probably my second year of doing comedy, but like that was definitely one of my top like 10 like favorite local shows we've ever had. Like he's just so hilarious, and I remember watching his Netflix special not too long before I knew he was coming to Pensacola. So I was really excited to open up for him. But yeah, he was a great guy. He's awesome.
Most definitely. This next guy, I missed him when he came to Jacksonville. He was he was at the Hourglass Pub, but when it was open. But it was Shane Moss from HBO, TBS, and Comedy Central. What was it like working with Shane?
Shane Moss. I love all his drug stories. It inspired me to actually try mushrooms again because I had to take a break from it. It was making me feel crazy. Too many bad trips. But so I can thank him for that. Yeah, I can do mushrooms again thanks to Shane Moss and some very convincing friends. Shane, I've only opened up for him once. He's been to Pensacola twice, I believe. There's one show in particular where Ryan Niemiller from America's Got Talent, he won. I don't know if he won last year, but he was like third place or something like that. They're on the show together, and when I look back at old pictures, I'm like, oh my god, like I was like performing the same night with Ryan E. Miller and Shane Moss. Like that's fucking awesome. So that's one of my favorite comedy pictures.
Most definitely. And you've performed with Christine Levine. I think I'm pronouncing that right, from Portlandia. What was that show like?
Christine Levine, I love her. She's such a fun lady. And I remember that show, this was probably, this was like maybe 5 years ago when she came to Pensacola. And I felt like usually on Friday nights at the back porch where we had our shows, it would usually be a packed out show. And I felt so bad for her. I think like the fair was in town or something. And like people in Pensacola go crazy over the fair when it comes to town. But yeah, there's probably only maybe 10 people at her show, like including me and like the host and other comics. I just felt so bad for her, but she did a great job and she killed it as always. But yeah, that's all.
Awesome. You mentioned Ryan earlier from AGT, America's Got Talent. What are some other fond memories from that show?
I love Ryan so much, and I'm so proud of him. So he kind of like moved around a lot, and he was living in the Pensacola area for like a year or two. So we got to spend a lot of time with Ryan, and this is way before he became, famous or anything. And I've seen him work on new material. I've seen him doubt himself before. And it's just so great seeing how much how successful he is now. And I'm just really happy for him. He totally deserves it. He's a great writer. Last time I saw him was in Tallahassee when me and Andrew were on tour. We saw him. Yeah, last summer is when we saw him. Performing at Birds in Tallahassee, and he did a lot of new material there, and it was really good to see him. But yeah, he's such an awesome guy, and I'm so proud of him.
Indeed. Birds is a pretty cool venue. I love the way it's set up, and Sarah Lamb and Sleepy P. Floyd. And
yes.
All those cool cats in Tallahassee. I love all of them. There's some cool cats out there.
My boy Ted Johnson also. Have you met Ted Johnson?
I have. He's such an amazing guy.
Love him.
Indeed. I met him at Jackie Knight's, believe it or not. So with a bunch of other Tallahassee comics. So great folks, most definitely. Indeed. And let's see here. You've also worked with Mo Alexander from Comedy Central. What was that like?
Mo is my boy. I love Mo. I've opened up for him maybe 3 times, and we just we got along right away. Because he's such a pervert, and so am I. And he even knew it right away. As soon as literally 5 minutes into talking to me, he's just like, "You a freak, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh my god, how does he know?" And yeah, he's become one of my really good friends. And I was actually really sad that he was supposed to do a show at Chizuko in March, and it was literally a few days right before, quarantine went into action. So we had to cancel the show. I was like, well, don't worry, we'll get you back once all this is over with, hopefully in a few months. No, it's been a year almost. And now that venue's closed, so he won't be able to do my show anymore. But I don't know. I'll figure something else out, and I'll get shows started again, and I'll bring him back. But yeah, Mo is such a great guy, and I'm so glad we became such good friends.
Indeed. I think that was the same tour that he was supposed to come do the Tirnog Irish Pub, which is my home room in Daytona Beach. And so that didn't happen. But Tirnog is still open and alive and kicking. So I'm thankful for that. And Charlie McMullen is a mutual friend of mine and Mo's. And Mo and Charlie would go on tour together sometimes. And Charlie is like my artist. Whenever I need something done, he's like, all for it. So it's pretty neat that we have a connection with Mo in that form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome.
Indeed.
I love comedy so much.
Absolutely. It links everyone in the most awesome ways.
Mm-hmm.
The next comic is just like Dave Stone, and I got to interview him when he was in Jacksonville too, and his name's Kenny DeForest, and he was on Late Night with Seth Meyers. What was that like working with Kenny DeForest?
Kenny DeForest. I don't remember too much about it because we didn't really get to talk that much, but and I had also just started dating someone at that time, so I'm like, sorry, Kenny, I'm like investing in something else right now. But no, that was a really great show, and I remember I ended up taking some pictures for him. I brought my camera out, and I got some video clips of myself and him. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to talk to him too much.
Most definitely. And this next person is from my home state of Colorado, and it's he currentently lives there now, and it's Sam Talent, and he just released a book. How's Sam working with him?
I literally have Sam's book here in front of me right now because I'm reading it. That's awesome. So Sam just wrote Running Light for anyone that's watching this. Sam, I met Sam my first year doing comedy, and I think maybe he'd been doing it like 3 years at that point. So he was in a group called the Gentlemen's Club. It was him and 3 other guys, and they came through Pensacola, and that's when I was like always like letting like comics like crash on my couch and stuff. I wasn't sleeping with any of them. I was just giving them a place to sleep, but just want to make that clear. But yeah, so Sam and the Gentlemen's Club, they came through and they were like asking, any of the comics if they had like a free room or couch that they could, or like a floor they could sleep on. So I was like, y'all can come to my place. Like we had a little like party at my house with some of the other comics, or at my apartment at the time. So I just gave them my bedroom and gave them like my bed and a blow up mattress. I just slept on the couch, and I wanted to, be the hostess with the mostest. So I was going to surprise them with breakfast. So I had left my house while Sam and like the other guys were in my room, and I forgot that my doorknob was broken, and sometimes it would just fall off and you'd get like locked in my room, and you like only I would know how to fix it. And so I went to the grocery store and I came back, and I remember it was Nathan Lund from Colorado who was there with Sam. He was part of the Gentlemen's Club. I just remember him like walking out of my room and going to the bathroom across the hallway. I was like, hey, how's it going? I just got back from the store. I brought breakfast. And he was just kind of looking at me weird, and I always thought that was strange. But yeah, so I made them breakfast, I made them eggs, and I remember I accidentally dropped the eggs on the kitchen floor, and Sam's like, oh no, we're going to eat these. So he ate my floor eggs, and I will always remember that. It's so sweet of him. And he got everyone else to eat my floor eggs also. I also took them to the Gulf of Mexico for their first time ever. We all went to the beach, went swimming, so they had a lot of fun with that. It was really funny because I remember we live next to a Navy base. So we're always used to, planes and stuff and the jets, flying by. And I think like the Blue Angels or something, flew over us. And I thought nothing of it. But Sam and all of them were freaking out, like hiding under the water. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, are we being attacked right now? I'm like, no. I'm like, that happens all the time. Like, y'all are fine. It's just the Blue Angels. It's okay. So going back to the story of them being locked in the room, I had no idea this had happened until the next time Sam came back in town. He's like, yeah. He's like, it was really weird that you locked us in your room. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, when you locked us in your room. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, like my doorknob's broken. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, you need to make sure you go and tell everybody, like all your friends, Nathan and Bobby and them, like, I'm not a crazy person. I wasn't holding all hostage. Like they seriously, for a whole year, they all thought that I had locked them in my bedroom. But really, I just went to the store, and I guess that's when it happened. The doorknob happened to break, and I wasn't there to help them. And apparently, they were like yelling my name, and they're like, "Olivia, like let us out, please, let us out." So that's a really great story about Sam. Sam Talent's actually coming to Pensacola soon. Not for any shows. He's just coming to visit because he's got a lot of friends here. But yeah, Sam's one of he is absolutely one of my top 5 favorite comics I've met in all my years of doing stand up, and we've become such good friends. And his wife Emily is so amazing, and his father is great. Yeah, he's awesome. Definitely one of my favorite comics for sure.
Indeed, most definitely. And I was supposed to have him on my festival this year, but COVID happened. But I got Nathan to perform last year, and it was at a house show. It was in the basement because my festival pops up in the most random venues, and so it was pretty dope to
Nice.
have Nathan and my pals from St. Augustine and myself in a basement with my pals. My friends from St. Augustine, their family drove all the way from Arkansas just to be there. It was just so gnarly. But when you spoke of Nathan and that whole sequence of the doorknob closing, it reminded me of Misery with Kathy Bates. It's
all right. I have not watched that, but my boyfriend keeps telling me I need to watch it.
Oh yeah, recommended.
And maybe I told him that story, and that's why he told me to watch it. Yeah, I need to watch it, obviously.
It's all connecting now. So, you've also worked with Hillary Begley from Netflix too, and what was that like?
Yes. All right. I love Hillary. She's one of those comics that when we first met, we hit it off right away. I actually just did another show with her in Panama City. It was so good to see her again. It was Peter. Oh, what was his last name? Peter. I can't remember his last name, but she was touring with a guy named Peter who is hilarious. That was my first time meeting him. We performed in Panama City, and she was telling me about her experience of her meeting Dolly Parton, and how nervous she was, and how it was really funny, and how she walked the wrong way up the red carpet, and then we went out at Panama City, and we ran into this girl named Courtney. I can't remember her last name, but Courtney is the star of Floribama Shore on MTV, and that is the one reality TV show that I'll watch. I'm obsessed with it, and I have been wanting to run into this girl named Courtney from this reality show for 2 years now, because every time I do a show in Panama City, I'm just like, oh my God, I hope I run into Courtney. And I was with Hillary when I met her. We're just walking around, and I never would have noticed it was her if I didn't hear Hillary going, hey, you look really cute. And she was talking about Courtney, and she didn't know who she was at the time. And I just happened to look over, and I went all fangirl on her. I was like, oh my God, Courtney! I lost my cool. Literally in her face, I yelled her name. And Hillary's like, who is that? I'm like, she's famous too. I'm like, y'all are both famous. And I'm like, we all need to hang out. So yeah, we get to hang out with Courtney for a little bit. Me and Hillary did. And I have to thank Hillary for that moment, because I never would have turned my head and saw that it was this reality star that I've been wanting to meet for years now. Yeah, Hillary's awesome. She's hilarious. I love her joke about her uterus that she named Charles. She actually just came out with a bunch of new merch, by the way, so y'all should check that out. Yeah, Hillary's awesome. She's become one of my good friends.
Indeed, awesome stuff. And you've also worked with other well-known touring comics in the area when they passed through. Do you remember any of the other comics that stand out?
Nope, not off the top of my head. Sorry. I'm
Next
sure I'm gonna
question.
regret saying this later.
For sure. And so, in the beginning of this episode of podcast, if you will, I spoke of like we're raising funds for you, and you chose to raise funds for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. What does that organization mean to you?
Well, I think we can all agree that majority of comedians are depressed people. And I think, just everyone, majority of people are depressed more than they'd like to admit, especially now more than ever. And I don't know, I'm not shy about it. Like, I'm definitely a very depressed person. Most of my friends were all depressed. My boyfriend's depressed. And I know we've all had, suicidal thoughts before. I've had family members and friends that have committed suicide. And so, yes, that one, and then St. Jude's, those are two organizations that I always will donate money to every year, just because, I feel very strongly about them. So that's why.
Most definitely, indeed. I feel you, and that's why I do comedy, is because it gives me a channel to unleash all my demons into the crowd, and so no matter how dark it is, so it brings light into it. So it makes me feel good to share, like that I have a dark side too, even if I'm cheery on the outside sometimes.
Yep, same.
Indeed, most definitely.
Just smile through it.
Absolutely, just let it shine. And Olivia, the next part of this show is where I was hoping to ask you questions about this part, where I was, I've interviewed like the majority of the comics in Florida. There's like 500 interviews on my YouTube channel alone, and even some that were just touring by, like passing by. So with that said, let's jump into those. And what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
A couple reasons, and I'll keep it short. So I used to be like an incredibly shy person, and just because I do stand up, people will assume that I'm not shy, but in some ways I still am very shy. It was at the point where, like, even when I was like 12 years old, 13 years old, I was still kind of like hiding behind my mom when around people. I was just so shy, and I've always been that way. But I grew up watching a lot of like, comedy. I love, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, Dave Chappelle, Mike Myers. That was another big one. I always really loved comedy, and like I was always just like a really sad kid, and I was really shy. And right before I started doing stand-up, I went through a pretty bad breakup. It was my first boyfriend that I had been dating for 6 years. And I had just graduated college at the same time. I was living in Tallahassee. And I was like, I just don't know what to do with my life. Like, I just, my boyfriend and I just broke up. I found out he had been cheating on me the entire time. I just graduated college, but I felt like it was with a degree I didn't even want to use anymore. And my next door neighbors actually at the time were stand-up comedians. So I would go and watch their shows at Birds in Tallahassee. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I can do that. Like, this just looks so much fun. Like, I just feel like it was meant to be. So literally the week that I moved back to Pensacola after I graduated, it was in 2013 in August, I started going out to the comedy shows there at the basement of the Days Inn lobby. And I'd just go by myself, and I would just sit in the back and just watch all these other comics. And then, I finally introduced myself and then mustered up the courage to go and do it myself. And I've been addicted ever since then. And I've done it every single week since that first time going up until COVID happened. But before that, yeah, it was every single week I would go up.
Indeed. And I totally can relate to you with the relationship with them cheating all the way throughout, and having a degree that doesn't really pay you much. And it was horrible, like with the degree thing. Like during my senior seminar class, some of the people that graduated from the program said, well, I have bad news for you. And they tell you at the last semester that you're not going to make a lot of money with this degree, but you're going to have to do this, like go into a field that because you love it. And I'm like, all right, journalism. And then I kept on getting free concerts out in LA, and I got to cover all my favorite bands. And I'm like, all right, it makes it worth it then.
What was your degree?
Journalism, mass comm with an emphasis in journalism.
Nice.
Yeah. So I became a concert journalist out in LA, and boy, it was so amazing going to the Sunset Strip every single night almost, and seeing all my favorite bands I grew up with. So it totally made it worth it.
Yeah. What are we doing now? Why are we doing comedy? Let's go do that again. Or you can do
Indeed.
that again. Let me join you.
Absolutely. Well, LA was too expensive, and I was just like, I gotta get out of here. But it was like I got to see the Doors play without Jim Morrison, and like that's how far back it took me. I didn't expect to go all the way to the '60s.
Nice.
Yeah. Then I saw like Deftones and Cypress Hill and all that stuff. But it was good stuff, good times, most definitely. But I didn't want to go deaf, and that's why I got out of it. I was like, there's just too much loud music going on.
Yeah, I can
Like
imagine.
all these awesome venues, but I still had to get out of there. But the second question is, what was it feeling like when you first performed stand up?
What did it feel like?
Yep, the feeling when the first time you performed stand up.
I was so terrified because, like I said, I was such a shy person, and like another reason that I wanted to do stand up is I was like, I don't want to be like this anymore. Like I want to be a different person. I want to be this shy person that gets walked over all the time. Yeah, I was so nervous. I felt like I was going to pass out. Like I couldn't even do public speaking in any of my classes. Like I literally would just tell my teachers, like, just fail me. I'm not going to go up there and talk. Like I can't do this. So yeah, I was so nervous. My one of my best friends was there, and her mom and stepdad, and this is the only people I invited. I didn't even tell any of my family that I was going to go do it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell most of my friends. I remember I did a joke about how like I was giving, my first joke was I was giving girls tips on how to, like, if they started their period out in public and it was showing on their pants, I was giving girls tips on what they can say. It can be like, oh, like a car just drove by and splashed water on my red pants and all the dye came out of the pants except for my crotch area. Or like, oh, I just sat in some ketchup. Oh, I'm so clumsy. Or, oh, don't worry, I just, cut myself and shaved my pussy earlier. So that was my first joke. And I'll never forget the comedian Alfred Ward from Mobile, who still does stand up as well. And he's a good friend of mine. I just remember he was sitting in the front row and he has his arms crossed. He's just like, I will never forget that. He's just shaking his head like, what the fuck am I hearing right now? This is so weird. And also, in addition to that, so that was my first joke. In addition to that, I stuttered because I used to have a really bad stutter before stand-up, and me just talking all the time really helped with that. But yeah, I stuttered when saying pussy. So no one knew what I said. And one of my friends that was there was like, did you say birth hole? I was like, no, but that's a really weird coincidence because it's the same thing basically. Like everyone thought I said birth hole when I was saying pussy. I was like, this is weird. What's happening? Like, it's not what I said at all, but it is the same thing. Just a more colorful way of saying it, I guess. I don't know. But where was I going with that? Yeah, so that was I was super nervous. That was my first joke. And I don't use that joke anymore, obviously.
Indeed. You mentioned a lot of famous comics like Robin Williams early in the first question, and I want to know what your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums are.
Comedy specials. I really like Sarah Silverman, the one Dust that came out. I think that was what it was called. Right? Specks of Dust, something like that. And also, I don't watch too many comedy specials because, like, I'm afraid that I'll accidentally, like, take material from people because I know people that happens sometimes. So I actually really don't watch that many comedy specials. I just try to keep my stuff as original as possible and try to not subconsciously, take anything. But the ones that I have watched, Mike Kaplan's special that was on Netflix was really good. And like I said earlier, I had just watched that coincidentally right before I found out he was coming to Pensacola. I know everyone hates Louis C.K. right now, but all of his specials were really good. So were you just asking for comedy specials or?
And comedy records too.
Comedy records. There's so many. I can't think of just one. Oh my gosh. Can I not answer it?
Yep, that's totally fine too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I was searching for a Silverman, and it was a speck of dust, so I got to definitely check that out too. awesome stuff. And so you go on tour with Andrew and a lot in
Oh, Ali Wong, Baby Cobra. I love that one so much.
oh,
Sorry.
indeed, that was a special
Okay.
one indeed. And you go on tour with Andrew. You mentioned earlier in our interview. If you can go on tour with any comedian, you can pick Andrew again if you'd like. Locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
I would love to go on tour with Sam Talent if he had me, but that's probably not going to happen. I know he just kind of does his own thing, which I totally respect and understand. But yeah, Sam Talent would definitely be one of them for sure.
Indeed, and locally.
Locally, well, Andrew for sure, but also my boyfriend Kirby Hullett. I would love to go and do a tour with him because he's a hilarious comedian. He's been doing it for like over 10 years. But he works a lot, so he doesn't really get a chance to travel as much as we do. But I would love to go on tour with him.
Absolutely. And if you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Like famous comics or just like anyone?
Anyone. It could be close friends and family or your famous comics, whoever that know you best, if you want.
Okay, so I'd love to get roasted by. I'm actually doing a roast soon. I might have to go up against my boyfriend, so I'm really nervous about that. But it's also going to be hilarious. So yeah, he's on that list, but that's already going to be happening. So we'll just not put him on that same list right now. I'd love for Tony Burkett to roast me, the one that used to run Back Porch Comedy. His wife, Jessica Bright, she's a teacher. She doesn't so much do comedy anymore, but she's hilarious. I would love her to roast me. She's so good at it. God, this is such a hard question. There's just like so many comics that I'm thinking about right now. I would like for Ted Johnson to roast me from Tallahassee. I think that'd be super funny. And then, who else? It's just too hard of a question. I can't finish it. Sorry.
No worries. And where do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
Hopefully keeps getting better and better than what it is now. Not that it's bad now, but I'd like for, I don't know, COVID to be over with so we can actually get like more shows going again. That's for sure. Yeah, that's the main thing. I just hope, all this is over with soon so we can all get back to doing shows. And that's where I'd like us to be. No more crazy shit happening.
Absolutely. And which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into?
What was that?
Which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like improv, sketch, comedy writing, acting, directing, etc.?
I'd like to go into sketch comedy eventually. I've taken some improv classes before. That's not really my arena, I don't think, but it also has been very helpful. Yeah, I'd love to go more into like writing and filmmaking for sure. That's something I'd like to bounce into in the future.
Most definitely. And let's see here. What is your favorite joke a comic has written?
My favorite joke that a comic has written? Mm-hmm. I love Tom Papa's. That's also, now that I'm thinking about it, any of Tom Papa's specials on Netflix are so funny because he's like the master of doing like mostly clean comedy and like, but still almost raunchy, but still passes as like family comedy. It's so good. But one of my favorite jokes ever is by Tom Papa. And he talks about, he's like, so when did like singing become a thing? Like who was the first person to start singing and say, oh, this is a thing? He's like, we're like cave people. Like was someone just walking around one day and going, ah, ah, and they just really love the sound of it. Like, how did that get started? That's not exactly how he says it, but you get it. Something on those lines. But such a funny joke. I always think about that.
Most definitely. And let's see here. What experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
Which what?
What experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
I wouldn't want anyone to be upset with me. Not that I necessarily do offensive comedy, but I just want them to walk away happy, and I want them to walk away, feeling better about themselves, and just I want them to feel good when they leave. I don't want anyone to have a bad experience.
Indeed. And how I found out about you is through our mutual friend Anna Leppley.
I love Anna. Yay!
She's the best, isn't she?
Every time she comes in town, we always hang out, and I love her so much. We
Indeed.
laugh so hard. Oh my god, I can't even tell you the things that we talk about. Like she's great. She's so funny, and I love doing her drag show. One last thing, the last time she did her drag show, or comedians in drag, was at the Days Inn basement, and she's done it there several times before. But the last one she did, I was in it, and I was dressed up as a biker. So I'm like, I'm just going to dress up as a biker. Coincidentally, there was a biker rally double booked the same night as the comedy drag show. So I'm like literally blended in with all these bikers because I'm like in my drag as a biker dude. And I remember I went behind the bar because I also worked there at the time. I remember security got mad at me. They're like, hey, you can't be back there. I'm like, it's me. It's Olivia. They're like, oh my God. Like, I thought you were one of the bikers. Oh, it's so weird. Such a weird coincidence. And then I remember Andrew walks up in his drag and he's talking to me and Anna. He's like, I'm going to get fucking stabbed tonight. Like, all the guys that are dressed in so terrified to be around all these bikers. So it's like such a mixed audience of all the bikers and like their friends, and then like the people that are actually there to see comedy. Like, so many confused faces in the audience. Oh my God. It was such a great night. But yeah, I love Anna. Anna's so funny and I love her. She's so fun.
She's a sweetheart for sure. Like when on this side, most she's like on this side, like where like she lives like an hour away from me, and like I help run the doors from and take care of the money and all that stuff for drag shows from Jacksonville all the way to Melbourne sometimes. And I'm like, anything you need help with, I got you, and so I take photos for her and stuff for her drag shows.
Nice. That's nice.
Yeah. She's a kind soul, and sometimes we just like stay up because we're both vampires, and we just like message each other at 3 or 4 in the morning and just talk. It's just fantastic. I love her.
I wish I was as healthy as her. She is always working out and eating eggs. She's always eating scrambled eggs.
Just watch out for her farts. That's all.
Oh God, I have not experienced that yet, actually.
Indeed. I wonder if she'll eat your kitchen eggs that fall on the floor.
Oh, call back.
Call back.
She probably would. She probably would.
I think so too. And so, as Anna had recommended you, I'd like to know, like if you can nominate my future guests on the show. Like, if I can, may I have you nominate your favorite open micer, favorite host, feature act, headliner, and show producer. So, who's your favorite open micer you'd like to have on the show?
One of my favorite open micers right now is Delicia Nichols. She started doing stand up. She'd been doing it for a few months, and then quarantine happened, and she's like, I was like doing good at it, and she was doing really good at it. But she's still doing the outside open mic that we have. She's super funny, and she's really killing it. So she's definitely someone I would recommend. And then, all right, so you said open micer, and then what else?
Host. You
got to interview Andrew Ferrara. He's a great person to interview. He's so fun to talk to. So I definitely recommend him.
Absolutely. And favorite feature comic?
There's a comedian here named Jake Thornton, and he's really killing it. Like, I think that's someone you would definitely like to interview for sure.
Indeed. And your favorite headliner?
My favorite headliner. I want to say Sam Talent, but we've already talked about him so much. I know you've interviewed him, I think, before, you said.
I tried to, but not yet. But we'll keep it in your neck of the woods in Florida instead.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, in Florida. Sorry. Tech Johnson?
Oh, I've interviewed Tech already.
Okay.
Yep. How about someone from your town or like nearby?
Brent Condon.
I'll go for
Yeah.
Brent for sure.
We've been doing comedy
Indeed.
about this. Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. He's a great writer. We've been doing comedy. He's been doing it a little bit longer than me, maybe like a year longer than me. Um, and then is there anyone else?
Show producer.
Show producer. So not necessarily comedian, but a producer.
Yep. Or Booker. Like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emma Franco and Jason Hedden at Panama City, they are killing it with producing shows right now. Yeah, I would definitely get in touch with them. And anyone that's watching this should definitely reach out to them if they're going to be in the area. Like, they put on really great shows. So.
Indeed, most definitely. I'll have to have you help me out with the spelling of their names because I'm bad with spelling.
Yeah.
So awesome. And let's see here. And so I'll definitely send you those interviews with Kenny, Dave, and Tech, and so you can see their answers too. That'd be pretty awesome. And if you like them, give them a thumbs up and subscribe and all that.
Yeah, good stuff. I will.
And which reminds me, follow Olivia on Instagram and donate to her PayPal. Follow her on TikTok, Twitter. And donate to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. That'd be rad of you if you can. And St. Jude too. I haven't put that on there, but I'll be sure to add St. Jude to the bottom of the video here before we unleash it onto the world. So I'm stockpiling all these up until January and releasing them like every day of January until I run out of them and all that good stuff. And I'm hoping, like, in next December, I'm hoping to bring Sareth Fest. I have my own festival named after me. It's not a new.
I saw that. Thing. Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. And so I was so bummed. Like, I keep on trying to bring Florida pals all the way out to Colorado. And I know that you love traveling out to Portland for the festival that you got to appear on. And so, like, no one would have, like, could afford to take off from work or, like, could afford to go out to Colorado for a couple of days. So what I decided was to bring Sareth Fest to Daytona Beach. And I'm hopefully you can be a part of it. That'd be awesome. Bring
please.
I'll nominate some of the cool cats from your area too, and make it a big old Florida comic celebration so we can party for a few days out in Daytona Beach.
Yes, that'd be awesome. Please.
They have bike week. We should have a comics week. So hopefully that'll come true in December. So Olivia, are there any final words you'd like to give out to the audience while we're here?
Be yourself. Don't be an asshole, but still stand up for yourself.
Absolutely. Indeed. Follow those wise words from Olivia. And thank you for tuning in to the Stand-Up Speakeasy. I'm Sareth, and for Olivia and for my YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe if you dug this episode. And follow everything that's Olivia's there. And thank you for watching. And we'll see you soon, I hope. We'll see ya. Take care.